right where you are to see the best of the year's interactive entertainment. It's Cybernet with me, Lucy Longhurst. We check out our favourite games, get our fruity friends out of bed, and revisit a massive trade show. It's all here. It's Cybernet. Let's start by taking a look at some of our favourite PlayStation games of the year. First up, here's a game that redefined the entire racing genre, Gran Turismo. Not only did you have a huge choice of 250 carefully designed cars, but they looked the most lifelike motors we'd ever seen. The replay mode in particular was detailed enough to make you think you were looking at a real televised race. The arcade option let you access high-performance cars to race against a host of other competitors, or to challenge a friend in the frantic split-screen two-player mode. The simulation mode showed you the amount of depth and detail that had gone into the game. But it was the accurate handling that truly amazed us. Every single car drove differently, making them feel and respond exactly like the real thing. Gran Turismo completely revolutionized the genre, and racing has never been so impressive. Time for another racing title now as we take to the track with Colin McRae Rally. Developed by the team that was responsible for TOCA Touring Car Championship, you had the same variety of driving views from which to complete your selected rally stage in the fastest time possible. The game moved very fast and featured some stunning graphics with changeable weather conditions and cars that suffered from general wear and tear. A rally school meant that McRae not only offered advice, but put you through some tough driving tests, a nice feature which added depth to the game.
Nice one.
And having a range of challenging terrain certainly tested out your driving skills. The split-screen two-player option removed any time pressures and allowed you to get good and dirty whilst bumping your opponents off the track. Overall, Colin McRae Rally was exceptional and quickly became the king of the off-road racers. We've seen many FIFA titles before, but here's our best from the year, World Cup '98. As soon as you began, you could see how well animated each of the players were. Not only did they look better than before, but by using more polygons, they moved and acted more realistically. Unfortunately, though, this added detail did slow the gameplay down slightly. As with the other FIFA titles, you had loads of different moves at your disposal, and although they took some time to perfect, they eventually became essential to your gameplay. You could watch the game from various angles and view all those goals and near misses with the excellent replay feature. World Cup '98 became one of the best football sims on the PlayStation. You just needed to get on that pitch and start playing with those balls. Most of us enjoy a fight, and Tekken 3 had to be our favourite combat title. Although at first glance this looked like its predecessors, the action was a lot quicker and the characters' designs far more detailed, which made some super smooth gameplay requiring very quick reactions. After defeating all the opponents with your character, you gained a film clip of them to keep. Mastering each character's moves was difficult as they all had a unique style of combat, so you had to persevere to gain your reward. With so many options to satisfy your curiosity, this title kept you occupied for hours. So if you wanted the fastest, smoothest, coolest combat title around, keeping the whole family firmly glued to their seats, then Tekken 3 was the one for you. PC games got even better over the year, and here are some of the best. Thanks to Grand Prix Legends, you could transport yourself back to race in any of the Grand Prix teams in the 1967 series and against some of the finest drivers in the history of the sport. Taking over 4 years to develop, the game's main emphasis was on achieving realistic handling, so GP Legends required the utmost skill and a remarkably different driving technique. The graphics had some nice little touches, such as the rear view mirrors and original detail of the circuits. The sound of the engines was also very impressive and helped create a nostalgic atmosphere. Grand Prix Legends was a novel idea for a simulation and was one of the most engaging racing games of the year. If racing's not for you, then wait for this. The original was a classic. All you had to do was sit in your tank and blast any wireframe vehicle that appeared. But then they released the new Battlezone. Vastly more developed than its 80s counterpart, Battlezone turned strategic. In order to defend valuable biometal deposits across our solar system, you had to build factories, construct units, and attack anything that got in your way. If you think the landscapes look better than average, that's because Battlezone used real terrain data from NASA's planetary database. Now that's what I call attention to detail. Whether you were ordering robotic units to defend a base or protecting a biometal shipment before its journey back to Earth, you couldn't rest for a minute. The action sometimes got a little too much for your tank, and ejecting before it's too late was a great idea. Unfortunately, escape was never that easy. Unreal was the title that many PC owners had been waiting for, and after 4 years' development, it was finally released. Graphically, it surpassed every 3D action-adventure ever. Of course, a fast computer and a good graphics card was essential, but once you had the hardware, Unreal truly amazed you. Each level was designed with immense detail and led you into some of the most beautiful surroundings you'd ever seen. You couldn't spend too long gazing around, though, because there were some pretty mean monsters just around the corner. To help you on your way, there were various weapons for you to collect, including some rather impressive explosive green blobs. All the monsters were susceptible to different types of weapon, so learning the weakness of each was essential. If you add to that some highly original multiplayer levels and incredibly atmospheric sound effects, Unreal really did have it all. But one of the most exciting role-playing titles of the year had to be Final Fantasy VII. Converted from the PlayStation for your PC, it was identical in every way. You began your epic adventure controlling the main hero, Cloud, but had to pick up other companions as you progressed. They became essential to your success, helping you to solve puzzles and defeat all those dangerous enemies. The battle sequences were in real time, so you had to think quickly. Deciding whether to attack an opponent, cast a magic spell, or heal a member of your party made the difference between success or failure. There was also a host of sub-games, from chocobo racing to snowboarding. Add to that an engrossing storyline, stunning FMV sequences, and a perfect learning curve, and you had one special game. Let's face it, Final Fantasy VII was hot. Coming up, we play with Bond, visit Alice in Wonderland, and see if the truth is out there. The Electronic Entertainment Expo, or E3, is the interactive industry's biggest event. In 3 days, 40,000 people tried to see over 1,000 new games and multimedia packages, and we were doing the same. So watch this space for just a few of the highlights. Out to impress those still not convinced of its software support was Nintendo. Things may have been difficult since the 64-bit console's launch, but titles not from the Japanese giant were now everywhere. Their very own Banjo-Kazooie and Conker 64 were nearly complete, but getting the most attention was The Legend of Zelda. On an even bigger stand, Sony was showing that the PlayStation's success wasn't slowing down. Tekken 3 was pleasing those who liked things dark and deadly, but it was a little dragon called Spyro who was giving Mario cause for concern. On the Sega stand, they were showing off an array of arcade and PC titles, but behind the scenes, many of us were hoping for a glimpse of the Saturn II Dreamcast. However, only a lucky few were allowed to see it in action. Eidos Interactive's heroine Lara Croft was looking to please her fans with the third Tomb Raider. Had she met her match, though, with another hero called Cutter Slade. And it was Outcast from French developers Appeal, which received the most votes for the best game in the show. The event lasted 3 days, but for many was just too much. Travelling back to their hotels, tired attendees had to return the next morning to do it all over again. E3 was really quite a show. Now for our top N64 games of the year. And first up, here's Banjo-Kazooie. The evil witch Gruntilda had kidnapped little Tooty while her big brother Banjo was sleeping. It was time for an adventure to begin. You started the game at Spiral Mountain, a sort of training zone where a mole called Bottles showed the two pals, Banjo the bear and a bird called Kazooie, their basic moves, from jumping to attacking. The rest of the game was based around Gruntilda's lair. The doors in this central world were locked by magic, and they could only be opened when you'd collected the number of musical notes needed to break the spell. There were also jigsaws to complete, but finding the pieces wasn't easy. There were 10 in each world, and many of them had to be earned by completing various tasks or sub-games. Banjo-Kazooie may be yet another cutesy game for the N64, but it certainly set a new standard in adventure gaming. After all the hype and publicity usually associated with the movies, GoldenEye 007 finally arrived, and it was definitely worth the wait. Based around the actual film, you controlled Bond, James Bond, and had to use your highly trained 007 mind because there were 18 different levels, each with their own unique mission objectives. Each level was beautifully designed, and the mixture of settings added immense depth to the already gripping gameplay. The excellent multiplayer option let you play other characters, and here up to 4 players could enter one of 11 specially designed areas. You could decide on the length of each game, which weapons could be used, and you'd even be rated at the end. GoldenEye 007 was a classic. Other titles may come along and push it from its perch, but GoldenEye was certainly a diamond that'll last forever. The best N64 football simulation had to be International Superstar Soccer 98. The action was fast and arcade-like, and there was a new camera view and some additional tactics to master. Refined graphics meant every player was even closer to his real-life counterpart, and the animation was smooth and fluid. The game had also introduced some rather realistic extras. Not only was there the usual weather options, but there was a new time of day feature which made visibility drop as the evening approached. Also, if a player was injured due to a particularly vicious tackle, 2 first aid men ran onto the pitch to administer some much-needed medical attention. ISS 98 was the best football game on the N64, and we're still waiting for it to be beaten. It's time to grab your board and hit the softest powder around as we went off-piste to see 1080-degree snowboarding. Just like the real thing, practice makes perfect, so a stint on the training slopes was a must for testing out all those trick moves. Of course, tricks were for those of you who wanted to play it safe. If you were a speed freak, then the dangerous twists and turns in the downhill racing would be just your thing. And when you raced against a friend, this console didn't disappoint. The controls remained smooth throughout, and the graphics were so detailed that you could see well into the horizon. Unfortunately, 1080-degree snowboarding didn't make use of the N64's 4-player capabilities, so it was a little disappointing for those with a deep-rooted competitive streak. But if you like your thrills cold, hard and fast, this was one game that buried the opposition.